Some time ago I created a letter H for my great nephew, and now I'm going to create the letter P for my great niece. And I'm going to wing this as I go, like I do with most of my mosaics. I have, however, adhered these three pieces down, and then I'm going to use some beads here, such as these ones. I'm going to basically go with blue, pink, and some greens, but there's some really good beads to use. These are some seed beads here that I'll probably incorporate if I find that they're going to be the right tessera for this. I've also got here a antique casserole dish, which I'm not sure if I'm going to use my double-wheeled nippers on this. I really want to maximize getting out all these flowers, so I may use my ring saw to actually cut those out, because I really don't want to cut into this area with my double-wheeled nippers and then it deflects off to this area, breaking there. So I'll see how I go. Whether I use it, I'm not sure. I've got some other crockery here which I may use as well. I've got some rhinestone chain, some different colours of rhinestone chain, including this rainbow one, or I may use this silver one, which I find is really great to use in some mosaics. But, you know, I've bought a lot of things out that I may use. Here's some textured, looks like part of a plate or a pot, but I like the texture in this, so I may use this. Like I said earlier, I'm just winging it. This has got some beautiful, like, rainbow colours in it. So I'm really just going to see how I'm going to work with this and see how it develops. Now, the adhesive I'm going to be using is going to be Aves Epoxy Sculpt, hence that's why I'm wearing my green gloves. And I'll just see how I go. So I'm going to clear this area, and then I'll come back and start looking at my design and see how it progresses. Well, there you go. I'm getting there. I've got a reasonable amount done. This area here, I had to rip out the pink around the bird. I actually had that as that textured white ceramic that I showed you earlier in the video, and I thought it looked really, really good. But unfortunately, the texture that I used had marked it, and even though I tried cleaning it off, there was black marks on it that I couldn't get. It kind of like made it a washy type of look on it. So it did mark it. You might not have seen it from a distance, but I really wasn't going to be happy with leaving it. So I ripped it out and I put the pink in. I much prefer to have the white with the texture. It added a bit more interest to it, but it just wasn't meant to be. So that's what I'm up to. I'm just about to now, and I thought you may want to see me do this. I've mixed up some epoxy sculpt, and I'm just going to now put a row of these beads along here. So I'm just going to do that now. And of course, if you're working, you know, if you haven't got a lot of patience, don't work the beads, because it can be quite fiddly at times, especially when you're talking about very, very small beads like these ones here. They can be extremely fiddly. But practice does make perfect. So I'm going to now get my beads here. And I like to have the beads very close together. Everyone does things differently, but that's just how I prefer it. It is a personal preference. And it's good to organize the beads before you actually pull the thread out of them if you're using threaded beads. I find them to be a lot easier, but it is a personal preference. And always, one of the things that I do sometimes forget is to tie that bead up there like that, so as they don't just fall off. Sometimes I've picked them up and they've all fallen off, like these ones here. So, you know, you just get right into the zone, into what it's all about, and then before you know it, you pull up the beads and they fall off the actual thread. And then you need to remove the excess epoxy sculpt before it cures. Preferably you'll use it well and truly by then, so as you don't waste it. It's always good to mix small batches of epoxy sculpt so as it remains fresh, because you do only have a certain amount of working time, And how much that is going to be dependent on how warm it is in the studio or wherever you're working. So it's always good to mix up small batches of it. And all you have to do is just kind of like go through and just make these look really quite even. So that's what I'm up to. I will probably do, oops, there's a loose bit, or not a loose one, but one that I've put there accidentally. So what I'm going to do now is probably just fill in a bit of this or continue on. I'm not really quite sure. I've got this little bit left that I'm going to use up before I call it a day. And of course, I need to also wipe this over with water, or moist rag, I should say, just to wipe off any residue. I've been doing that as I go. But, you know, when I'm handling things and I put my hand down on here, then I really do need to wipe that over again because you really don't want that residue on there cured. Well, this is what I'm up to so far, and I'm really loving the design and the colors and where this piece is headed. I am looking at perhaps putting these in here, these beads, and then I thought, no, I'll change that. This one was going to go in here like that, which would fit really, really well, and I quite like the look of that. It kind of breaks it up, and then we'll go around into this section here, so it's not just all crockery. But what I'm thinking about doing is maybe adding a little bit of crockery just in there, and then adding these beads. So what I'm going to do is break this up. Now, I'll just put this aside because I don't want to get any crockery shards into that. I was going to use my ring saw on this, but I would really like the challenge and see if I can break it in the right way that I want it to. So what I'm going to do is use my glass scorer, and I'm not sure how this is going to go, but we'll just, you know, it's a bit of an experiment because the other thing is too, it does have a lip. So that's going to be very interesting. So we're just going to run our glass scorer down there. Down there. Down there. And of course, we'll see if the magic works. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And then I will get my Lepinets, I think, for this one, because I want to go over that lip there. Okay, so it didn't quite go according to plan, but it's not too bad. Well, that's not bad. I can cut that and use that for Mosaic, so I wouldn't get rid of that. I'm sure this will come in really quite handy for something. There you go. So I'll put that aside. And then, of course, we'll cut these ones here. Take it from up there. Well, it went along the score line pretty well, so I would say it may have worked. But anyway, yep, that's pretty good. So don't need those bits. And then I will probably put that, I think that will look actually really quite good. Just a bit of a rough thing there. Bring that around there better. I'm not sure whether this will actually, I'm not sure whether I'll like this, but I thought, look, it's worth doing and just seeing how I go with it. I'll keep all this off cut here as well. Take that across there because you never know, you might need just a little bit. You know, you're finishing a piece and you've run out of the larger piece and you think, oh, I just had a little piece, and that's why I like to keep those small pieces. A little bit more, but I think, let me just have a look at these beads. probably put another piece in. I'm not quite sure yet. Like most of my mosaics, I wing it. I rarely plan anything. Yeah, I think I'll do that. I'm going to cut another piece and sit in there, and then I will see what the beads look like as well. And if it works, then I can adhere those in with epoxy sculpt. But if it doesn't, then I'll just go back to the original beads and see how that looks. All right, I'll be back shortly. Well, I've just placed them, and I think with the beads above here, I think that's going to look quite good rather than just having all beads right along there. So I've mixed up some epoxy sculpt, and I've mixed it up here, so I'm just going to put this in now. I always wear gloves when I'm using epoxy sculpt. Always. And I had to put new gloves on today because they just wore out. These are great gloves. They last for quite some time. So I get quite a lot of usage out of them. And I find for me, these are a large pair and they fit me really quite well. But of course, there are different sizes. So for those people in Australia, if you're looking at getting these gloves, these are by Ansell and they're called Chem 3 and you can get them at Bunnings. And for those people in the US, if you use my link in the description box of this video on my YouTube account, you will see a link there. And of course, I do get a small commission from that, but of course, it doesn't cost you any extra at all. Just help support the channel, that's all. So I'll put that in there. And then this one in here. I'm going to have to cut that. It's a little, it's not flat. And then what I'll do is I'll get the beads. Just wondering whether I'll take them right to the end or not. So I'll put the big lot in first. Not too much epoxy sculpt in there. Just a little too much. That's better. Okay. And these ones, I really like these. These are a square bead and I really like using them. They just add a bit of difference to the piece rather than having everything round beads. I'll give you an idea what it looks like anyway. So I think it's looking really quite good. Now we need to take out this excess amount, although I'm going to have to put some other beads in here as well, or something in here to fill this area up. So I might as well leave the epoxy sculpt in there rather than clean it out, because I'm just going to have to put it back in again. And I might have a little bit of a bead cut already that I can I don't think I have that I could put in there. I wonder whether these will fit now. No. I'll think about that. I'll be back in a minute. Well, I've just added some extra beads in here. I wasn't really happy because the seed beads started here because they wouldn't fit into this area here, but you could still see some epoxy sculpt. And so what I decided to do was I just took a few of the beads off the strand and just turn them on their side there so they're flat on rather than going this way, they're facing this way, if that makes sense. So I've squished them in there, and you can't tell that they're actually turned on this side, but it just finishes it off really nicely. And I've added some glass gems in here, and I'll probably get one of these beads and pop in that corner there, one of those in there. But I need to mix up some more epoxy sculpt. Well, I'm really happy with the way it's going so far. I'm going to continue on with this piece, and then I'll come back in another video when I'm ready to grout, and I'll show you how I'm going to be grouting it. So anyway, I hope you've taken something away from this video. Put a comment down in the bottom of the comment section of the YouTube channel and let me know what you think of this piece and how I'm going. And if you saw value in the video, please share it far and wide. If you enjoyed it, please think about giving it a like. And if you haven't subscribed, think about subscribing. And I'll see you in the next video. Keep creating and enjoy.